Hello, welcome everyone to episode 12 of the Between Two Tales podcast. My name is Kevin. I'm joined by my co-host Dave. On this show, we create stories and we create them from random words. Dave, why don't you tell them exactly how we do this? So, Dave and I are trying to determine who the best storyteller is, man or machine. We're going to give it the same exact prompts and themes just to make it fair and on an even playing field. So far, 11 episodes in, we've never lost one. We've had some decent stories come out of the AI, but it never could hold a candle to what we can create. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to generate these words. We're going to get cooking.
Yes.
So let me
get the timer up and ready. And like I said from before, the timer doesn't start until Kevin hits generate those random words.
Yep. So one spin, that's the rule. Journal, television, conglomerate, thaw, and offset. We've got some pretty specific words this time.
Yeah.
The hard ones are when we get like really general words, but like these are very concrete and specific words.
Yeah. It's funny when I see offset. Isn't that it's one of the rappers in Migos, isn't it?
I think he got shot. He got killed.
Oh, is that the one that passed?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe
No, that was
Takeoff.
That sounds about right.
Because there's Offset, there's Takeoff, and then there's I forgot the last one. Quavo.
I think it was Takeoff who got killed. Yes. Wow. Okay.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Right, so Offset from Migos is in this story, the main character.
Yeah. And just to add a little tidbit on that, because now it's coming back to me. He's the one that's married to Cardi B, and I think they have a child together, something like that. So
I know that. I don't keep up with pop culture. So
hey, if he's going to be our character, I know what's going on in his life. But besides that, the definition is a consideration or amount that diminishes or balances the effect of a contrary one. So it's offsetting something, the amount or distance by which something is out of line.
Yep.
To place out of line. That's like a verb. So something
to place out of line. To place out of line.
Or I guess it can also be, I guess it really wouldn't be to place out of order or something like that. But it can also be like the words balance and so on, like to change the balance of something. Or else. So that could be something interesting. Conglomerate.
It's just like a group, right?
Group together things.
Or is it a specific group?
Here, hold on.
Agreements or harmony.
Yeah, a number of different things or parts that are put or grouped together. Okay, that's fine. Obviously, the first thing I thought of that was business related.
Yeah.
And like businesses merging pretty much. But it could really be anything that's going to be grouped or put together.
I just had a fairly insane idea just pop in my head. Not that insane. What was I just reading about? I think it's like one of these supermarket companies, conglomerates.
Sure.
Aldi and Trader Joe's, they're both actually the same store. They got split off, actually, but they're part of the same parent group. And I think it's because that family is just like fighting against each other, which is, I don't know what's with families fighting against each other in supermarkets, but there's another supermarket chain that has the same exact problem.
Yeah.
But let's say our main character, he's in a feud with his family over some big business conglomerate. Doesn't have to be a supermarket, but something.
Sure.
And he gets poisoned and he's about to die. But let's just say there's some technology that not freeze dry him, but freezes him. So just freezes him in
the cryo chamber.
Yeah, in like a standstill. He's still alive somehow. I don't know how that tech would work, but
yeah, like a fake cryo chamber, like what they thought they could do back in the day.
I think Walt Disney got frozen.
Yeah, well, They say that. I don't know whether it's just a myth that we heard about or whatever the case is, but so something like that.
Yeah, so our main character gets the Walt Disney treatment, and because he's got poison, he's running out of time, so he might as well save himself. He writes in his journal when this cryo chamber is supposed to end, maybe some X number of years in the future, and all the things, just in case he forgets, like, it was my brother who poisoned me. They're trying to steal everything. He has all this evidence against them. He hides it, so he just writes in it where he hid it. And then the year 5000 comes, and my man gets unfrozen. This cryo chamber is on like some isolated area where no one knows. Walks out, doesn't know where he is, what year it is, or anything. He sees the journal on the table. So it was this. Starts reading it. All his memories starts coming back, flooding back. He's, I gotta get my brother, that bastard. Tried to kill me.
It could be.
Finds his way. Yeah, then he finds his way to civilization. Turns on TV, and it's so many thousands of years in the future. His brother's already dead.
I look at it as that's the start of the thing. Like, you started off with the poisoning stuff, but like you started off with the person being frozen, and then for one reason or another, they're in charge of this huge company. They have a sickness, let's say, or whatever, and then they get frozen and they get thawed out. It could be it's a television or TV company. Come back, and we embed journal and offset within the thing, but it's more so about reclaiming power that they've lost once they come back.
Yeah.
And it's not about the brother, but it's just like now they have to, like, they want to run their company, but it's like there's already CEO, there's already things in motion. There's so many things that have changed.
They don't believe he is who he says he is because so-and-so died X number of years ago. You can't be that person.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what it can be like about roughly. Like, that's kind of like the idea of, I'm like, what other themes can we put in there that he has to contend with?
Well, he's got to be poor.
From rich to poor?
Yeah, because all his wealth got taken away. All his wealth, all his assets got distributed to his other family and stuff like that. He has
to start from the ground up again, right?
He was a business mogul. Now he's a normal dude. Maybe it's like a story of appreciating the little things. He sees things from the lower class, middle class point of view because he hasn't experienced that in a very long time in his past life.
Yeah,
past life
or
before he got frozen.
Alive, yeah. But it's a different time too.
Different time. There could be flying cars and stuff when he awakens. I don't know. Depends on how far in the future we want to make it. Yeah, he doesn't know anyone, so he has to. It's a story about reclaiming his past life.
Let's say that he's able to, like, people end up believing him. Just because he is that person doesn't mean in this case, he can't just come back and just take it over. So I almost think of it like a Steve Jobs situation when he was first removed from Apple and he went to go create Next. So I see it like, all right, he comes back, he tries to come back in the company, whatever, or run it. They're like, get the hell out of here. Like, maybe your contributions at the time is perfect, like great, and we celebrate that, but like times have changed and that's not how it works.
Maybe the company's not doing very well when he wakes up.
Maybe it's doing just fine, and he ends up creating a rival, competing company, and it becomes a battle. It ends up taking market share, and it becomes like these two gladiators that are businesses, and now he has to fight the business that he started, but he still is an entrepreneur. It's not like it's too daunting in the sense, like his mindset might just be like, fine, I'll start my own. I'll start another one. And if I was able to do it then, I can do it again. And then maybe he does get it to goes pretty well. And then maybe there's some undercutting. Maybe there's some kind of shady business practice going on from his original business. Like they're trying to stop him. So instead of like in the beginning celebrated, even when he comes back, it's like they're celebrating him. But they're like, that's not how it works anymore. And it goes from like a positive thing for them, even though it's this sucks because you can't run it, but it's still positive in a sense, to a very negative thing, and then it gets very shady, very they're trying to protect their money and their business.
all the shady stuff could have been happening under his nose, and he didn't know about it.
I think when I say shady, I'm thinking of I guess under his nose. I'm thinking there's like a show, Succession, I think, and so I'm thinking in terms of
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, all right. I've never seen it, but I've seen parts of it to get like a sense of what it's about. But it's just, I think it's like a family business that's like really Fortune 500 type deal, something like this. And then it's all the shadiness that goes on behind the scenes to keep the business at its status and continue to grow it and make money. And it's just like dark in the sense of what people are willing to do in order to protect the business or protect the income stream. And so that's what I'm thinking of. Oh, this can actually be something where, maybe it's too far for them to try to take him out, or maybe it's not. Maybe they do try to take him out at some point, whatever. But that's the idea of it goes from this positive thing to he's an annoyance, like let's try to buy him out or whatever. And he's, to like people's lives. Like it gets very like cutthroat in people's lives and dangerous, disastrous. Stuff is leaked in the press kind of deal. I don't know.
Yeah. And we could make it where if he doesn't wake up too far off in the future, he could wake up like at a point where he's competing against his like grandson or something.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
So was that like 50 years ahead, 40 years?
I'm pretty sure the Disney company is still run by Disney family.
Yeah,
or like
of course.
they're on the board or whatever. But because Bob Iger has returned as a CEO or whatever, but like I know that the Disney bloodline, his grandkids and so on, like they're on the board. I mean, every once in a while they're going to news, like they'll have discussions and stuff. So like they're still pretty active in that empire. Well, I like that idea.
Maybe his daughter just had a newborn when he froze himself. Now everything went down and he wakes up. Now his grandson.
It's like a CEO and president.
Yeah, and his daughter's probably dead. So
yeah,
and
you can make it a little bit more removed than that. His daughter's child.
His great grandson.
Yeah, and it's like maybe because here's what I'm thinking. Before he went into this cryo chamber, maybe he met his grandson as a baby, and now it's like that person's still alive, but they're older. He meets his great grandson.
And now he's the same age as his grandson. Not same age, but like this.
But like old, like
same physical age.
No, I get you. That's also trippy in that part too. What age is he really? I guess technically just because the body is of a certain age, that's the age. But we don't have to get too far into that.
That's just time. Let's just say this cryo chamber freezes everything, stops all bodily functions, just freezes it in time.
Yeah.
Then he comes out and he just picks up where he left off, basically. And just time has just passed, but his body's still operating at that.
It's pretty interesting. All right. So
interesting idea.
Really, what his obstacles become is like new world, because things have changed in the time that he's been dead, frozen. The world
new
changed.
World. He's got to build back his wealth, get back on his feet.
That's another thing. Like build back wealth.
He's got to convince everyone he is who he is. Basically,
I think the convincing part doesn't have to be too long, because like the main story is going to be this cutthroatiness of it. Yeah,
that's probably just going to be like one of the things that just float in the background, and it's just satisfied in the end or something like that.
So the question becomes, what kind of television type company should we just make it off of Disney? We could. Why not? We don't have to make up something. We can just have an alternate universe of what Disney. Walt comes back to life. It can literally be. It's not like we're making this for real. So Walt comes back to life as is thawed out, and we'll have some fun in the multiverse.
I thought you meant that they are like making televisions, like Sony or something, like that type of company.
Well, television to me could be any of those things. It could be the physical television. It could be a television show. It could be a television network. I was thinking in terms of television network.
All right. Maybe he's like another version of Warner Brothers or something.
Yeah. Sure.
So he owns like a media.
Was it Time Warner now? Or Time something? Because they bought Time.
Yeah, it's Time Warner. I'm pretty sure.
Time. I forgot what it used to be called. Something. I don't think it was just Times, but they bought that a while ago, and then over a decade at this point, easily.
So he owns a media empire. We'll just say that. He
Yeah, so
a media empire.
owns a television media empire. Yeah, perfect. Where should this be set? It could be in Florida, it could be in New York, it could be in Cali, could be
A major metropolitan city.
It would have to, yeah. Let's throw it in New York City.
New York or LA, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure they have multiple. When you're this big, you have multiple offices. So we'll just put New York, LA. I'm sure it'll go back and forth or whatever.
Yep.
Character. So let's figure out what we want to call this media mogul.
I was going to say something like Sam Walton. I feel like he's like a Sam Walton type of character. Is there a businessman name generator? Has to stop.
Dominic Vaughn. Ford Cross.
Ford Cross.
Benjamin King.
Benjamin Button. Okay.
I'll put down Benjamin King as an option. I think that would work. But let's see what else we get. Lionel Bishop. Dwight. Clay, Kit, Stewart, Baxter. I don't think I've ever met anyone named Baxter.
No, that'll be a new one for me. Baxter Miller.
Warren. Let's think of Warren G.
Warren Buffett.
Godfrey. Jeffrey. Charlie. Bradley.
Adolfo.
Alpha.
Colton. Cameron. Tanner. Jorge.
Jesus.
Raymond.
It could be Jorge.
No.
It could be Jesus.
Nathaniel.
Roderick. Rocky.
Camden. Blaine.
Gerald.
Maxwell.
Percy. The option it gave me, it was Percy Nugent. I've never met someone with the last name Nugent with the name Percy.
Like the Vietnamese name?
Yeah. I'm like,
Nah.
that's no one's named Percy. Aldridge.
Percy.
Benedict.
Arnold.
Christian. Gaylord. Harper. Hector. Zachary. Duncan. There's a name you don't hear often anymore. I only heard that name in movies.
Duncan.
Yeah.
Winston.
Bentley. I don't see anything better than the name originally, the first one, Benjamin King.
Benjamin King. All right.
I think that's pretty.
And the name of his media empire will be
King Entertainment. There's a person I shot once with for that TV show pilot, and her last name was King, and her dad was the CEO or whatever, CEO and founder of some kind of media producing empire, something like this.
Yeah, we're writing about him.
Yeah.
King Brothers.
Just him. We could just call it
King Media.
King Media, King Entertainment, King Media Group.
There you go. King Media Group.
It's because I'm that big. There's so many moving parts. So really, it would just be King Media Group with a bunch of other companies underneath.
Yep.
Benjamin King, let's put him around in his 60s, like when he's frozen and thawed.
62.
All right.
He's got his journal.
He's going to be journaling every day.
He journaled what exactly happened before he got frozen. So are we going with...
He was journaling before, and then he's going to be journaling today.
So are we going with someone attempted to murder him? That's why he froze himself, or something else?
That's a pretty extreme approaching it. But that's a good question. Because if it's a sickness, then it's like we have to get him healthy or supposedly healed in this future where they would have the power. That could be something like that happens. His grandson and great grandson like assist and are happy to do so to help him. Hey, I want to come back. Great grandfather, great granddad. Just take it easy. We have the technology to make you healthier. It's a procedure or whatever. They'll take you in, they'll do it. But don't worry about running the business. It has to start off like simple and them giving, like being willing to help. Take it easy, relax. enjoy the world, blah blah. That's the way it would be. And then even though Ben has a different want, but it can start off with that, like them fixing that issue. So really, the way I see it starting off, one way is like it's when he finds out of his medical issue. Let's just have it be some sort of cancer, and then they don't have the power.
Cryo chamber just cured his cancer because the cells weren't able to grow. It just died off.
True too.
Walk out healthy man. Maybe it was.
And it's like why he had to be frozen for so long. Let's just give them the charity, so that way it's like an arc. It's
because the family decided to leave him so they could take all his assets.
all right. I'm gonna say here the first thing. Benjamin finds out he has cancer. I see it like a thing where it's like he comes home, he tells his wife or whatever. Or maybe he's at the doctor's office. I don't know.
Stage 4.
Yeah.
Very progressive and advanced.
Or maybe he is at the doctor's office. Benjamin.
He's got a couple months to live.
The doctor's office. He needs a moment where he needs to try to find a solution. And then this ends up being like his last solution. To the doctor's office and finds out he says stage 4 cancer. The doctor. At this point, really, there's nothing they can do.
They said, try to go cross some stuff off your bucket list.
You can do other than live the rest of his good days out. What year do you think this is in the past? I feel like 1950s.
We could, or we can make it
that way. The technology needs time to catch up.
60 years in 1950s. If we put it in our day and age today,
it can be past our day and age today.
When he finds out, it'll be our day and age, and then when he wakes up, it's like 2080 something. Because if it's in the 1950s,
oh, I see what you're saying. You want to start it. I was going to start it in the past. Technically, in this timeline, or we can bump it up to the 70s, and then what would happen is, so that he finds out in the 70s. 1970s, whatever. That same year that he finds out he's going to do what he's going to do, his direct child is already born, and he has a relationship with them or whatever. They would have to be old enough to where they also have their child, because we said something maybe about him meeting his grandchild, and that just may be as a baby. So let's just fast forward and say his child becomes the CEO. They probably run it for 20 years. That brings it to the 90s. Then his grandchild runs it for, say, another 20, 30 years. So that's the 2020s. And then pretty much, and at that point, so that's to now. I mean, it's off 3 years, but whatever. That's now. And then his great-grandchild is now mid-30s or whatever. And now they're running the show.
Okay.
These are rough. We're not giving exact dates, but I'm just saying like 70s era. It might be later 70s, but
so he's in his 60s in the 70s.
Yeah, at some point in the 70s.
Okay.
It might be 1979 and he just turned 60. You know what I mean? He's damn near made to the 80s. Yeah, I don't know, but we'll just say he's in his 60s around this time.
Okay.
Just tell him there's nothing they can do.
He has terminal cancer.
He should live the rest of his good days out.
Get his affairs in order.
Yeah.
Go get affairs in order.
Inconsolable.
Says the doctor while the doctor is smoking a cigarette because it's the 70s.
Pretty much. So then Benjamin come to... All right, I'm going to fast forward because this doesn't really matter too much. But Benjamin tries to come to terms with it, but doesn't.
Refuses.
He looks for other options. Now, obviously, if we were writing this out long form, this whole sequence of him trying to come to terms with it could be something a bit longer, obviously, something interesting. But at the end of the day, he tries to come to terms with it. He doesn't. He looks for other options. Now, how's he going to find out about this option to freeze himself for the future?
Drug companies doing experiments, freezing, I don't know, random stuff.
Do it on the golf course. I feel like this is a person that plays golf. He's playing golf, trying to live some good days, and someone says something, and they say, "Yeah, this company."
There's a new startup pharmaceutical company. They've been able to freeze like some kind of animal cells and revive them after a certain number of days. And then can you freeze the whole body?
Yeah.
And they're like, we haven't tried. And I got nothing to lose. Oh, what if the company took some cancer cells? So it's relevant to him. They took some cancerous cells, or a rat that had cancer. They froze it.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be even that. It could just be I put something like he's playing golf when he's told that there's a company freezing animals and they're having success, like being able to freeze and then thaw. And then he wonders if they can freeze a whole body.
I think they should make it where there's a use case that makes it more enticing to him. Like they freeze a rat because they do inject rats with cancer just to do experiments. They freeze a rat that has cancer, thawed it out 60 days later, and the cancer cells were all gone. So he was like, can you do that to a human? And then the guy's like,
they don't know.
He's like, we've never approved such a thing.
Absolutely not.
Blah, blah.
All right, so they're having success freezing and thawing them. Then Andrew wonders if they can do a whole body. Let's just say he goes to the offices of this company and finds out they have been experimenting with freezing animals with cancer cells or cancer. Their findings promising because each animal with the cancer cells showed no
signs of cancer on Thaw.
The cancer cells showed no. There we go. All right, signs cancer ones. And this may or may not work for him, but whatever. Once thawed. The only I'm gonna throw in a monkey wrench just because it may play later for us. The only thing is they don't know what the long-term effects are. That may be something for us to...
Memory loss. That's why he journals.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know it's memory loss. He just comes out. He doesn't know what the heck anything is.
I would imagine he'd be hella confused anyways, but we find out maybe. Okay.
The journals brings back
brain damage to a certain degree. All right. Ben, I'm just going to start calling him Ben. Ben tells his wife of this crazy plan. She doesn't want him.
She refuses, then she obliges.
She doesn't want him to do it, but he talks her into the idea. She agrees. It's his last normal day.
It's the last hurrah.
It's his last horizon. Ben,
what if they have a sending off party? A private sending off party of him stepping into the cryo chamber.
That's so weird. Ben,
like a funeral.
Okay, yeah, why not? Ben is throwing a funeral.
A live funeral.
Yeah. This is so weird. Is throwing in a live funeral. Yeah.
You watched that show.
You know what was funny?
Right?
If you throw a live funeral, the thing is with real funerals or with any funerals always happen for the most part. I'm assuming that no one's ever done this kind of thing as far as just like a pre-funeral. I guess it's not impossible. If you have in advance you're going to pass away, I guess you could throw a funeral party, let's say.
I think it's the Irish that do it. Like for their funeral, they dress the person up as like a party, and they like party.
Yeah, I don't know if they do it, but I saw that there was like a southern rapper who they like embalmed him and all that stuff, but then they dressed him up, and he was just like, you know what I mean? And they just put him on the stage with sunglasses on, and then
it's so weird.
That's
so weird. You remember? You watched the show Upload, right? Where the dude uploads his consciousness before he died.
I don't know if I've seen that as a show, but I saw that concept in Transcendence, Johnny Depp film.
Oh, in that show, he has a live funeral because his consciousness is uploaded and his girlfriend is still alive in the real world. So she's hosting a funeral for him, and he's streaming in live from like the metaverse or something.
Familiar. It says a show, right?
Upload. I'm pretty sure that's the name.
Yeah, it's a show, right? 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I think it does sound familiar, but all right.
But this is in the same vein. He's actually everyone's in the same world. He's actually alive. It's just his last.
So for this, Brent's throwing his alive funeral party. All his friends and family come to party with him.
Have his last meal. So they say their goodbyes.
Yeah, say their goodbyes.
Man, would that be weird? Watching your own eulogy.
The weirdest thing. And then the thing about that is you get to see who wouldn't show.
Yeah.
And it's like you could have some final words for them if you really wanted to. Make them feel guilty for the rest of their lives.
The concept is making me.
Yeah, it makes me a little uneasy.
But what's happening?
This party, they say their goodbyes.
A live funeral.
Ben prepares. All I know is if this was made into a film and like that part was actually kept and written out, like it would just be such a weird experience
to
embody that.
He's having his last favorite meal.
Prepares to go into the chamber. I was going to say he says goodbye to his kid, but that would be terrible. I feel like, actually, no, because the kid is an adult. So, like, maybe the last 2 people that he sees before this is his wife and his only child. He kisses his wife and hugs tightly his son. The researchers or doctors.
This is like a assisted suicide. Sort of
sense. Ask him if he's ready. Hey, we gotta keep laying down. Don't worry about that. We can go over the morals of it.
Don't worry. There's no morals here.
Doctors ask him if he's ready. He nods that he is.
Gives them a salute.
He goes, all right, bye guys. He steps, or he probably lays down into this chamber, and
it closes. He smiles, and a flash freezes him. And he's smiling.
They gotta tell him, they're like, don't smile, don't do nothing weird, just rest your face. Because imagine like someone just makes like an unhappy frown face the whole time, and every time they like check the window and they're just it's so strange.
That's why he's gotta smile.
That's why they gotta be like, listen, what do you do? Just relax your face. He lays down into the chamber, closes his eyes, and relaxes his face. If this was a comedy, it'd be like, yeah, make a goofy face so every time they come check on you. It's like the goofiest face ever. And relaxes his face. This mist enters the chamber, and he's frozen.
Flash frozen. And let's say he wakes up in a mausoleum because that company went under or something, and they just took him and just put him inside like a real tomb or something.
No, that's crazy. No, we can't do that. No, that's just, you took it too far. See, that right there is, you're making everyone's skin crawl with that one. Just imagining, because that's gone too far, Kevin. Just imagine that. Imagine being him waking up in that kind of situation. Like, you'd be bugging out.
Exactly.
Bugging out. The screen cuts black.
Yeah, imagine if they bury him and he just punches through the ground like a zombie.
Yeah, they lied to him. They're like, yeah, we're going to keep you frozen. Oh, they freeze him, and then they just put him in the ground anyways, back in the regular casket.
They take the chamber that he's in, and they just put him in a mausoleum. So he gets to walk out a door. He's not underground or anything.
All right, we'll figure out as we're going. All right. So we hear some beeping. I put the screen cuts black just because I feel like something like that, so like final and so strange, needs to just cut to black.
But it's like blinking, right?
Well,
closing his eyes.
Black, and then we hear beeping.
There's like air coming out.
We see
released.
beeping. We see beeping. We see something flashing. The chamber opens.
You hear like a burst of air coming out.
Yeah, and air comes rushing out. Then
my man is still here like a vampire.
Then
opens his eyes.
Then opens his eyes.
Takes a huge gasp of air.
I'm trying not to think too deeply into what he would feel like, but like you can't help it.
You gotta feel like you're suffocating because you gotta breathe. It's gotta be like.
Well, it might just be like you wake up like when you take anesthesia or whatever, right? Like you just wake up and he doesn't even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ben opens his eyes and sits up. A tech is staring at him in bewilderment.
She holds up her pen.
She runs out the room screaming, and then we'll take it as he wasn't supposed to wake up. She runs out the room screaming. Ben,
we gotta figure out why his body was kept there.
Ben, pay for this service, damn it, and they're gonna keep the body. Ben tries to call out to her, but nothing comes out. Gotta get everything going. He tries to get out of the chamber and stand, but is too weak. We're gonna do some skipping because there's a whole lot of stuff we could do just in that one part. The tech comes back with the head doctor, who's so happy that this worked. This might have been the first person to see it actually work.
Well, they don't know. They got to do tests on him to find out.
He woke up, so that's at least one good sign. They got
to test if he still has cancer or not.
Yeah, but they didn't even know if he was going to wake up. Just because he's doing animals doesn't mean it's going to work on humans. The doctor comes over and is astonished.
He starts talking on like he knows him, but Ben doesn't know who he is. Doesn't remember.
It's a different person. It's a different person. Comes over and is astonished. The doctor tells him he's been asleep for
80 years.
80 years. We don't have to worry about it making
worry about
sense.
The time.
Yep. For 80 years, Ben's eyes open wide.
He doesn't believe it.
Quick, the doctor says. Get him to an imaging machine. See if his cancer is still there. 3 burly men come in and move him to a stretcher. They run a check on him, and his cancer, is it gone?
It's gone.
All right.
It's gone. I forgot what the machine is called, but before it was his body was lit up like a light, like a Christmas tree with cancer.
I don't think it's not the MRI scan, right?
Maybe not. I do know what it looks like though. Like I know what the imaging looks like. It shows like lit up areas where cancer is found.
Yeah.
The scan before he was lit up like a Christmas tree, and now it's blank.
Yeah. I remember we went over this in school, but
I shouldn't know. I worked in the oncology center.
The CT scanner.
There it is.
So I think that's the one. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was it, but I wasn't sure. T-scan shows no signs of cancer.
Yep. Cancer is gone. They move Ben to a... Wasn't there one that we could have already... Oh, it was
private hospital room.
We don't have to use the word thawed, but I'll just say Ben is the thaw. Ben, yeah, okay. Just make sure. And there's also, I'm just going to pause there for a second, because there's also like the beginning. Start him off with stage 4 cancer. All right. So it's the very beginning. I think we should just quickly, just before the stage 4 conversation, Benjamin is living his best life. He's running a television conglomerate called King Media Group. And I say that as like a placeholder just for he's living his best life. Because we don't know who he is really before he goes under. And that just occurred to me. Called King Media Group. He is the founder, CEO. We see him living his best life. Just a little something at the top.
Is this a flashback or what?
No, because it dawned on me, like, we get to this point, and I'm like, we never really said who he is. Like, we know who he is, but as far as the outline is concerned, like, no one's going to, it's like a random dude that just goes to get frozen. And so I'm just putting a small, like, little line that says he's this television conglomerate. He runs a television conglomerate called King Media Group. He's the founder, CEO. We see him living his best life. That might be a montage or whatever, but who cares? It's just something to say. Normal life, stage 4 cancer disrupts his normal fun and happy life, and then so on.
No, we can show that in the beginning. He's like on a yacht smoking cigars.
That's right.
Doing, I don't know.
Hitting golf balls into the sea.
Hitting golf balls into the sea. His family is diving into the clear blue water. So they're just got a massive yacht.
Living that Gatsby-esque life,
See a helicopter land on his yacht.
And we can also put in here, Benjamin tries to come to terms with it, right? Like when he's trying to come to terms with the thing, he puts in his journal that he doesn't want to die
I refuse.
this way. He still has more life to live.
Maybe the journal entry is something pretty sad that makes us connect with him. Like maybe he's worked all his life. Now he's finally feels like he's enjoying it. And I feel like my life is starting to begin, but it's going to end at the same time.
He's worked too hard from poverty to now. He still has more life. Yeah, sure. All right, cool. And just so that way we both know the time, we still have 33 minutes, which I think we're good. The only thing we haven't used is offset, so that's just something to keep in mind. So they run a check on him. His cancer's gone. They move Ben
Chambers used to offset the cancer cells.
Say it one more time.
If we don't have another idea.
Say it one more time. I think
Chambers used to offset the cancer cells. They offset the cancer. Pretty much what it's doing.
Yeah.
Unless we don't have another idea we come up with. He's going to have to do some business, right? So he's going to offset some losses.
He's going to be doing all sorts of offsetting. I'm not worried about it. They move Ben to a hospital room. Ben turns on the TV and sees his media group's network.
They have a scandal going on.
He sees his media group's network. He's happy it's still running.
Now for a word with President CEO.
The world has changed so much. The president of America is Indian.
An Indian woman.
Yes.
Named Priya.
From that time period brought into today's world, bro, their brain might explode. Hell, let me not even, because there's still plenty of people born in 1970, or not born in 1970s out here, but I guess he's in his 60s.
This is 80 years later.
And on top of that, 80 years later, so it's
There'd be no one alive from the 70s. It'd be the only one.
Oh, that's right, because not today's generation, but past that, yeah. But if you have to remember, he was born somewhere in the 1910s. So think about that. The world has really changed.
Well, you know what's interesting? I saw somewhere, I think it was on Joe Rogan's podcast, people in 1910 who were born in that era, they went through some shit. They went through
both World
War One,
yeah,
the Great Depression,
yeah,
the Spanish flu,
yeah,
and then World War II.
Yep, yeah. They went through life. Looked like hell. That's honestly, the way we have life right now is very modern. The way we have it set up, life was hellish to a certain extent.
Yeah, it was something. It was like if you were born in 1910 or when you turned 18, the world just went to World War One, and then when you were in your 20s, the Spanish flu happened and the Great Depression.
It was like you were born with everything just trying to kill you before you.
People think COVID was bad. The Spanish flu killed 50 million people.
They didn't have nothing to try to combat it with.
I know.
I think.
No, definitely not. I don't think so.
Crazy. Goes back in the room and tells Ben that his family is on the way. Let's call it granddaughter. Too many guys. Granddaughter shows up and hugs him. Ben cries.
But his granddaughter's still alive?
Yeah, but she's old as all hell. Because not his daughter or his son, but it's the grand one.
Oh, so she would have to be in her 80s.
Yeah, she's old.
Yeah. All right.
And shows up and hugs him. Ben cries looking at her. How much older looking she is compared to him.
It would be funny if this cryo chamber reversed aging. He walked out a very young man.
But looking she is compared to him. I think of that scene in Interstellar when Matthew McConaughey
sees his daughter.
Character sees Murph as an old lady, and he still looks like he still looks the same way he did when he left them, but trippy. Comes back much older looking than him. She tells him all right, we're gonna do some skipping. We're at 20 minutes. She
They embrace and cry.
She tells him about their family after he was gone. His wife, I'm sure he wants to know what happened to his wife. He was gone. His wife was sad and remarried, had more children. No, let me stop. Just make this a nightmare for him. After he was gone, I'll just leave it at that. Ben's finally taken home type stuff. Ben is finally taken home to rest and come back to normalcy. His great grandson makes his first appearance and explains his home and other items don't really exist, or at least they're not owned by him anymore. So they may still exist. It's just they're not his. They will set him up with a proper living situation, etc. Ben wants to know what's going on with the business. His grandson, or great grandson, laughs and tells him that they're doing well and expanded, but he shouldn't worry about that.
What's going to be our main conflict? That the business is not doing well, actually, or that there's shady?
It could be part of it. He wants to take control of the helms, but at any point, the main conflict is he wants to take control of the business. So, he's asking about it. His grandson's pretty much trying to put that down. It doesn't mean that's gonna. Him saying he shouldn't worry about that doesn't mean crap to Ben. You know what I mean? He's okay. I'm gonna find out what's going on. To him, it was like he was. You have to remember, it was like he was running in a successful business, all this stuff, and then he had to go do this thing. Right? He went to the crowd chamber, and he's out. His mind is still, I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? He's confused at all the new things, but
Let me see.
So
because before he stepped in,
before who stepped in?
Before he stepped into the chamber, he was ready to live his life and stuff like that, like wind down. That's how he made it in the beginning.
No, just saying he's living his best life, but he's not allowed to be on a yacht and do all these things while running a business. He can take vacation time.
Okay, for some reason I had in my head that he was like ready to step down and pass on.
No.
Okay,
quite the opposite. He wanted nothing to do with that. I think we're just showcasing that his life is good.
Gotcha. Okay.
If we were to expand that original thread at the very beginning, it's like we would show that he's making decisions or expanding the business in his own way at that time, and blah blah. And then he's on this yacht, like he's vibrant. That's really what the main thing of that first thing is, just to demonstrate his how vibrant he is in life. In business and living his life outside of that. So when he comes back, he's like, man, I'm still ready to go. You know what I mean? I did this so I can come back, or maybe this is what he thought, to come back and keep going because he wants to live life. And part of that is he's competitive and all this other stuff. He wants to push this business. He wants to push it into higher and higher realms. And he wants to do all the fun things, but also the business stuff. Like he's not done. Like a man who can't give up on what he started and what he worked so hard to start. So we have to link it between, all right, his grandson's pretty much like laughing, come on, man, dude, you should be retiring or whatever. But we have to link it and be like, Ben, bro, what are you talking about?
Let's say Ben
maybe Ben asks if he can.
Maybe he accepts it. He accepts it at first, but maybe just asks around because he's curious, and then that's when he discovers.
Maybe Ben tries to accept that he's not needed at the business, or tries to accept that the business has moved on without him.
Yeah.
But and you actually brought it up, which actually I think is perfect, because you said something about scandal, and so what his grandson says doesn't match what others are saying in the press, blah blah. There could be a scandal, there could be other things tanking it or making it.
Maybe his grandson is doing some shady things. Maybe his grandson's embezzling money.
But then Ben finds out the news that his great grand is.
I don't think you should find that out on the news. You should do some digging.
I think he needs to find out something small or something newsworthy that then, because you have to have inciting incident. So he finds out something that he doesn't like, that it doesn't sound good to him. Then he goes and digs, finds out more and more, tries to confront his great grand.
Maybe it's like that crypto dude who bought all these extravagant things, but he ended up losing all the money. But let's say the grandson is building like, I don't know, massive, expensive things, and he's like, "Where is this money coming and going from?" And he maybe does like a little digging, and he's like, "Huh, these books don't add up."
Are you saying,
somehow.
yeah, so he's taking the money. So that's when it leads him to find out he's taking money.
Yeah, or it just doesn't make sense. The money, where's the money coming from, and how is it, like, where is it going, basically? Like, he sees something off about the business that looks like it's doing well, but it sets off his spidey senses. He's, now, what's going on here?
Yeah, so what I would say then is Ben tries to accept it, so on, but Ben finds out on the news that his great grand, or they might not specifically target him, it might just be the company. He finds on the news that the company isn't doing as well as what his great grand has said to him in person. And it's like the stock is lower, the business has some bad investments, blah, blah, blah. So that causes him to be like, that's all it is, really. But then Ben sees that his great grand is living in luxury with, I think you said building
resorts for himself.
Building pretty much resorts for himself. Massive properties, not for the business, but for himself. Ben begins, we got 18 minutes, begins to dig a bit deeper. I'm not really sure what that looks like, but it may not matter to try to figure it out. But that's what like some of the middle section is. Begins to dig deeper, and then he then comes to the conclusion that his great grand is taking money of the business for himself. Ben feels he needs to take control of the company. Ben walks in to the main office and is told to leave since he doesn't have a badge. Do you know who the hell I am? I started this company from nothing, and I'm here to take it back. The security guard tells him to go back to the psych ward.
Go back to the psych ward, old man.
For saying this crazy stuff. Somehow. So, like, how does he try to, in what ways does he try to take it back?
He would have to get the board of directors to vote out his great grandson.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he finds them. And that's online. You can always find the board, especially these big companies. You can find out who the board of directors is. And I'm sure with a little bit of work, you can find out what you need in order to be able to contact them effectively.
He's got his connections just by
His
being
connections
part
are
of.
dead. He finds out who the board of directors are and begins to contact them.
And maybe someone on the board is a relative of one of his very good friends from back in the old days when he ran the company with.
Yes, I was thinking someone needs to have a little bit of empathy for him and willing to work with him. And they also see the state of where the current CEO is running, and they're like, maybe we should get rid of him.
Yeah, because I feel like that person needs to be the inside man to help him get the evidence he needs to kick out his great grandson.
Yeah, so it's like he finds out who they are, he tries to contact them. No one wants to take his call except one.
He recognizes a last name.
Yeah, except one.
Barton. Could it be related to Ken Barton, my old friend?
Ben goes to the house of his old friend's daughter. We have too many guys, so I'm just going to start saying daughter from now on. Ben goes over to the house of his old friend's daughter. She's one of the board members.
No, his old friend's daughter would be dead. It'd be his old friend's great-granddaughter, too.
Great-granddaughter. She's one of the board members. She lets it be known, that's the worst way to possibly say that, that her great grandson, isn't running things. She agrees it's time for a change. Back to the past. They stage a coup, and it fails. About 13-ish, 12 minutes.
So they try to have a regular vote, just vote them out. But let's say the other board members are in his great grandson or in their pockets. So they get the vote overturned. So they need some hard evidence. And that's when they find like numbers, bank accounts. I mean, we can't figure out all those details for the sake of time, but like they trace the money back from what the company invested in and what his great grandson is doing. They realize that one of the companies that they're doing business with is a shell company of his great grandson, and that's how he's funneling the money. It's all so intricate that we don't have enough time to figure it all out. But
Of course.
it'd be something in that vein. They discover.
But in this version of events, the board does care, but they need proof. So are we cutting out the idea of him starting his own company to rival it? Because that's a whole nother thing, like a longer thing with 11 minutes to go.
Yeah, we gotta cut that out for now.
All right. Hey, if you guys heard it here, that was an idea. Sometimes you gotta make some alternate changes. All right, they try to vote him out, but it fails because they don't have enough evidence of wrongdoing. Ben goes on a mission to find the accounts with the help of the great
Board member.
great granddaughter board member as they push deeper into the facts and find a shell company. A hit is conducted on Ben.
They try to kill him?
Yeah, why not? Add a little spice.
All right. Yeah.
A hit is conducted on Ben. Ben survives.
But the board member dies.
Yep.
They kill
He
her.
doesn't want to believe his grandson would do that, but he has the other board member.
I got you for a scene for that.
The other
It
board
just popped
member.
in my head.
The other board member is killed. We got a little exactly 9 minutes. The other board member is killed. Ben realizes he may not be able to vote his great grand out with the evidence. They don't even care. However, he can put it in the news and have the public opinion push him out. That's another tactic. And then he can be brought in after.
Wait, so how does he push him out?
So it's like one tactic is if he doesn't think, it's like, all right, even if he brings all this stuff, does he actually think it'll work? Maybe not. Maybe he does try it. I don't know. However, another tactic that he may want to use is that doesn't work. Put in the news and have public opinion and Congress push him out. Because sometimes when stuff like this gets found out, we've all seen it. They'll haul in these CEOs have them go to Washington and they grill them at the Senate or whatever.
So he gets assistance from a politician.
It doesn't have to be as direct as a politician helps him out, but it's like he gets really assistance from the news network. And then his great grand gets hauled into court to explain his evidence, and then maybe he goes to jail. Or maybe maybe there's a drama scene where this man tries to kill him. So I'm going to kill you, kill myself.
We're running out of time, but I thought about a good angle
What's the angle?
on why he would start another company. Because
I still think that's a better idea for him to start a company, but
we can include it, but we have to jump a lot. We have to just do vague things because, all right, so the assassination attempt, here's how I picture it. They got all the evidence they need, right? Files. So him and the board member are celebrating, having dinner. They come out. They're about to drive home. Green light. They go. They get T-boned by a car moving at fast speed. Ben is fading in and out of consciousness. He sees that the board member is just knocked out, but she's dead from the hit. He wakes up, bloodied and battered. The board member is dead, and the files are gone. All the evidence is gone. So he starts a company to do business with the King Media Group so he can infiltrate it. But they don't know that he's behind that company. Maybe he makes an alias, or he finds someone to be the face of it. But he infiltrates it that way to get the evidence that he needs to.
So okay, hold on. Find the accounts. They push deeper and deeper.
You know, now I'm tossing things around. But imagine this. I gotta talk fast because we're running out of time.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
There's a guy that's a janitor that Ben has befriended along this time. He's, hey, George, you want to start a janitorial company? He's like, I can get you. Then they somehow get a contract with King Media Group, and they get the evidence they need. Ben takes over the company again, and they buy out George's company or give him a large contract. Now George is rich too in the end, but he was just a humble dude.
The side quest. So we'll have this, right? They find the documents and stuff, find that he has a shell company, and his conducted on Ben. Ben survives, but the other board members killed in the same fashion that you listed out. We can say we do some crazy jump on 3 minutes or 4 minutes. With the files gone, Ben decides to create a new company to rival his old. All right. Takes it to the top while his great grand is trying to stop him. Eventually, Ben surpasses his old company, his great grand, unable to where I might go with it is he's unable to accept this, and so either he kills himself or he tries to do a murder suicide, or none of that. He goes to jail. Pick one of the 3 options.
You gotta go to jail for something.
Okay. So unable to accept this and does a shady business deal. However, Ben was counting on him to do something like that. The great grand is arrested, tried, and convicted. Hang with us, everybody. We're doing some jumping, but it's okay.
Convicted. Ben.
He's now gonna.
Ben merges.
Yep.
Merges his new company with his old company.
Wow. Ben merges his new company with the original. Top dog is back at the top. I don't know.
He's back.
Real quick, with 1 minute and 17 seconds. Where are we going to use offset?
The great grandson tries to do a shady business deal to offset
the losses.
His losses. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be an interesting idea if he started a company to infiltrate his great grandson's company. I was still thinking about that. That'd be funny.
I think there's something in there, but I would need more time to think it through.
Yeah. So he's at the top again.
As the losses. Okay. With 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Then he jumps
3.
out the window.
There's the timer.
We had a very interesting story idea here this time.
It's from what I wrote down, it's one of the shorter ones, but it's also with a lot of jumping is one of the more intricate ones where there's so many because of the nature.
There's a lot of moving parts.
There's so many moving parts, yeah. Because of the nature of it, there's certain areas where you really need to do research and understand how it works to make it perfect. But it's not a bad outline for an idea. It can always be, as everyone knows, it's something that can always be expanded and fixed. But just like that, we have another outline for something that could be expanded upon within an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly.
You can always edit.
Exactly. Oh, man. All right. So before we read this through, which parts do you want?
I don't really care. I can do the beginning,
okay,
and then I'll get halfway, and I'll just turn it over to you.
The beginning up to...
Get him out the hospital.
Okay. So this is after his grandson's like, oh, don't worry about it. Blah, blah, blah.
I can go down there, yeah. Roughly. Yep.
And I could go all the way up to the car crash that just happened to pop in my head when...
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I need you to say that, because that was...
And then you can end it from there, because then it ends.
So we go, board member gets killed, board member is killed. Okay, yep, that's perfect.
All right. So to recap to everyone, the 5 words we were given were journal, television, conglomerate, thaw, and offset. Our job was to create an entire story around it. If I were to give a quick log line of what this is, Walt Disney unfreezing himself and trying to take back his empire. That's basically from his corrupted great-grandson. That's basically what it is.
Pretty much what it is.
All right, Dave, start us off.
All right, so we start off with the one and only Benjamin King. Benjamin is running his television conglomerate called King Media Group. We see him at his most powerful, running the show, making new business deals, vibrant, healthy, happy. As the founder and CEO, he's living his best life. We see him on a yacht, smoke cigars, hitting golf balls into the sea, eating seafood, having a helicopter land on top of his yacht. He's living the best life that anyone could ever live. All of this comes to an abrupt halt when Benjamin goes for his physical, and his doctor tells him that he actually has stage 4 cancer. Benjamin asks him, what can he do? Maybe they can get started on treatment quickly, but you can tell in the doctor's eyes that there's really nothing positive, nothing more that can be done. The doctor tells him there's nothing that he or anyone else can really do at this stage. And at this point, it's better if he gets his affairs in order and really just live the rest of his good days out. Benjamin's wife finds out and is told about this predicament. She's inconsolable. She doesn't know what she's going to do when her husband is gone, since he's to orbit the sun for everyone in the family. And so for the son to pretty much disappear, she's afraid that everyone else will just become lost. Benjamin tries to set his affairs in order and tries to come to terms with this, tries to talk to his child about what's going on and that daddy won't be there much longer. All this becomes pretty hard on Benjamin. He has all the pain and the hopes and wants of the company going even bigger, living his best life after coming from poverty, all the hard work he put in over years. Best way that Benjamin tries to cope is he puts all his thoughts in a journal. So that way, after he's dead, his family, his children, or his child can go in and read his journal, and people can get a sense of who he is. It's not lost on Benjamin that some of the biggest players in our world have a journal, so that way people can know what they thought about, especially in the predicament that he was in. As Ben is writing out his story in this journal, he realizes that he doesn't want to give up, that just living the rest of his good days is forfeiting his chance at life. Ben decides to go ahead and look for other options. On one particular day, Ben's out playing golf with an old friend who he thinks has a pretty interesting option for him. And his friend tells him about this company that he works for, where they freeze animals and they're testing to see if they can freeze cancer cells. But that was the last he really heard of it. Of course, Benjamin wants to know, were they successful? And all his friend could really say is that they were successful at freezing and thawing out the animals. But he doesn't know what became of the cancer cells. But this gives Benjamin an idea. He wonders what can happen with the whole body, the whole human body. And since he doesn't know about the cancer cells, he needs to find out more. He goes to the offices. With his power, he's able to set up a meeting with the head doctor of the company. And they explain to him that they're experimenting with these cancer cells still. But their research and findings are promising, as each animal so far that has been interjected with cancer cells now show no sign of cancer once thawed. The only thing is, they don't know what the long-term effects are. And of course, they've never tried it on a human subject. Benjamin thinks about this and asks if this is something that he can do for himself. They laugh and tell him there's no way the government would allow them to do that. And even if they did, they don't know if he'll wake back up. This is pretty much a potential for suicide, an assisted suicide, which puts them in legal trouble. Benjamin tells him that he can come up with a plan to take care of this outside the U.S. jurisdiction if the doctor thinks it's at this point possible that could work. The doctor pauses, thinks about it, and tells him, based on everything that they've come to understand about this process, he believes the likelihood of it working is very high. Benjamin leaves with a newfound hope. On one hand, it's 100% you will die, and at least this gives him some percentage of a chance that he might be able to figure out a way to beat this. As crazy as it sounds, it's his best option. Benjamin goes home, and now he has to convey this crazy plan to his wife. She wants no part of it. She thinks it goes against God himself. It's unnatural. Ben talks her into the idea and gets her to agree for them to do this. She goes along with it to appease her husband, but deep down you know that she's not really in favor of this. It's now Ben's last normal day. He's throwing a live funeral party. All his friends and family come to the party to wish him well and to say their goodbyes and their pleasantries. Ben thanks everyone for showing, tells them to enjoy the cake, and with any luck, he'll outlive them all. It might be a brief moment of laughter, but the gravity of the situation is still lingering in the air. The next day, Ben prepares himself to go into the chamber. He kisses his wife goodbye and hugs his son tightly. The researchers ask him if he's ready to begin. As ready as any man could ever be for something like this. He nods his head. He lays down, he closes his eyes and relaxes his face. The chamber doors close, and we see a mist enter the chamber and surround his body. Just like that, he's frozen. The doctors wheel off the cryo chamber, puts it in storage for the long haul, and the screens cut to black. We come back, we hear beeping, and then we see something flashing. We look at the chamber, and the chamber doors open up, and the air comes rushing out. Ben is being thawed. He opens his eyes and sits up as best he can. But Tech so happens to be sitting in the room. She stares at him in bewilderment and leaves the room running and screaming as if a ghost just entered it. Ben tries to call out to her to come back, but nothing comes out. His voice is not working. He tries to get out and climb out of the chamber, but he's too weak. At this point, the tech comes back with the head doctor, who's so happy and overjoyed. The doctor comes over to the side of the chamber and tells him in astonishment that they were unsure if this would actually work on a human. He's the first subject that successfully has woken up that wasn't an animal. The doctors tell him he's been asleep for about 80 years. Ben's eyes get wider. It was at that point the doctor tells some of the other nurses and techs to quickly get him up and put him in the CT scanner. So they move him from a stretcher, they do the CT scanner, they run the check on him, and miraculously, his cancer is actually gone. This is a good day for these researchers. They pop champagne at just it working. They have proof, at least one person, it works. They move Ben to a hospital room. They turn on the television. They tell him to relax. They're going to go make some calls. On the television, Ben sees his own media group's network running some TV shows. He's overjoyed that it's still running. It still exists, knowing how other businesses go out of business after just a few generations. But there it is, still running. However, the world has changed so much. The cars are different. The planes are different. People are talking differently. Smaller cell phones. All these ads for various things and games on these cell phones. It's all very confusing. On the screen, the pops up who's the president of the United States, and it's now an Indian woman. Ben can't really even wrap his mind around that. He whispers to himself, wow, the world really has changed. The doctor comes back into the room and tells Ben his family's on the way. And the first person to show up is his granddaughter. She gives him a big hug, but Ben can't help but look at her with pure amazement. He begins to cry. He's so amazed. Compared to him, she looks like his mother. She looks so old. He tells her the last time he saw her was when his son just had her. She was an infant. His granddaughter proceeds to tell him about the years after he was gone, about his wife, about his son, her father, and so on. And then about where things currently stand. Life is still good, and Ben seems pretty happy with himself and with what he was able to start with this company. The doctors get him prepared to go home, and Ben goes home, back to his granddaughter's home, and they're trying to get him back to a sense of normalcy in this new world. On the way home, he sees all these different restaurants and shops and advertisements, and it's a lot for him to take in. When he's at home, he's trying to relax, but as he's trying to relax, there's a knock at the door, and the doorbell goes off. His grandson makes his appearance. Ben already knows at this point that his great-grandson makes his appearance. His great-grandson is running the company. His great-grandson explains to him that his home and a lot of his possessions are gone, or at least not owned by him anymore. However, he will work hard to set him up with a proper living situation and get it furnished and give him money, and so that way he can go on and live a more normal life. And I'll give it over to you.
Ben tries to say, hey, my mind still works. I can help around the company if you need it. And Bobby, the great-grandson, just laughs. He said, don't worry about it, Grandpa Ben. I got it covered. Just enjoy life. You earned it. We never thought any of this would happen, so you deserve to live life without working because we know you worked so hard your entire life. Ben hesitantly tries to accept his new life, the retirement life, something he never thought would be possible. He thought he'd be working to his grave, and technically he did, but he always expected to be doing something. So he's living the life of a retiree. He's going to coffee shops in the morning, taking walks in the park, going to the beach, having a drink there, trying to play golf, going fishing. And at the end of it all, he's just bored. He just wants to go back and stimulate his mind and do business because that is at the core of who he is. A news flash goes on to the television. King Media Group is on it again. This time, it's for layoffs, abandoning of certain projects, and the stock is tanking. But Ben thought Bobby said the company's doing well. So Ben starts to get a little suspicious. He's at the bookstore. He's browsing through the business magazine section, and he sees one with Bobby on the cover. There's a story on Bobby. Picks it up, turns to the story. It's the Playboy life of Bobby King. It showcases all of Bobby's exotic possessions, exotic animals, tigers, monkeys. He's got a resort that he built for himself. He bought an island. And Ben starts to get curious. We just laid off hundreds of people. But how is Bobby living like this? Where's this money coming from? Maybe it's because this wasn't around or even possible back in the 70s when Ben was around. He starts to get curious. So he shows up to King Media Group headquarters, makes his way to the finance department. He starts chatting up a young accountant there, a lady, and he's going to be very sly. He wants to get to the bottom of it. He chats up this young woman. He says, "Oh, are you taking care of the books here, the balance sheet?" And she says, "Yes." She's, "Who are you?" And then Ben tells her his story. She's amazed. And Ben was like, "Oh, I forgot why I was even here in the first place. Bobby asked me to come looking for you. I think it's a promotion. You should go to him right away." The young accountant gets super excited. She fumbles her things and She darts off to the elevators, but she left her computer on. So Ben sits down at her computers, starts looking at all the books, prints them out, and then he's on his way. So, after looking at all the books again, the numbers don't add up. They don't add up at all. And he feels like he needs to steer the ship again. So he makes another appearance at King Media Group headquarters, tries to barge into Bobby's office. The guards won't let him in. Finally gets Bobby's attention. Bobby's let him in. Has a brief conversation with Bobby saying, Bobby, I think we need to be partners or something. Because I looked at your books and things don't add up. We're siphoning money. We're losing money on the daily. Bobby says, Grandpa Ben, didn't I tell you to stay out of this? Don't worry. We have everything covered. There's no need for you to get involved. Ben tries to convince Bobby otherwise again. This time it irritates Bobby. And he has his guards escort Ben out of the premises. Ben then goes searching for the board of directors of King Media Group, the current board of directors. He gives each one a call, tries to contact them with no avail. Comes across a familiar name, Barton, Maggie Barton. He wonders, is she somehow related to William Barton, one of his first employees when he started King Media Group, and a good friend of his? So he investigates. He goes to Maggie Barton's house, knocks on her door. She answers. He explains who he is to her, and she tells him about how her family respects Ben so much for what he did for her family, for getting William started, for taking a chance on William, and whatnot back in the day. So she gives him an ear to listen to. So Ben lays out all the evidence that he found within the books of King Media Group and tells her that they need to get rid of Bobby as CEO and that he should be back in the back at the helm, steering the company the way he sees fit towards a good route again. She happily agrees. She looks at the evidence. It's very damning. And she wants to get all the other board members on board. So they have a vote to vote out Bobby a few weeks later. Bobby catches wind of this. And when they have the vote, it's only Ben and Maggie Barton trying to vote Bobby out. The rest of the board members deny. They said they need more evidence. So Ben, with the help of Maggie, they start digging more. They start tracing bank accounts, and they come across a shell company. They trace that shell company back to the Caribbean islands. They call the shell company, and they end up tracing that shell company back to Bobby. Now they got him red-handed. That's how he was able to fund his resorts, buy all these exotic things, and just fund his Playboy lifestyle. So, celebrating, Ben naively, he's a man of honor, so he naively calls his grandson, telling Bobby that he needs to resign because he has evidence that incriminates Bobby. And he's giving Bobby a chance to step down and do the right thing. And he would only do this because he's family. And of course, Bobby agrees. And Ben, he's celebrating with Maggie their big victory. They're having dinner at a restaurant. They go to leave, and they're in the car. They're driving away. They stop at a red light. They're still celebrating, talking about the vision and future of King Media Group, how they're going to take it to the top. Green light comes. They start going. Crash. The car just slams into the passenger side of their vehicle, causing them to flip over. Ben is fading in and out of consciousness. He looks over. Maggie's knocked out. He sees feet walking towards their vehicle through the shattered passenger window, but he just falls unconscious. He's awakened again. There's paramedics around. He sees Maggie's gone, and the files are gone. He's scrambling. He's like, where's Maggie? They tell him the bad news that Maggie has passed. And he's like, was there a folder? Did you guys see a folder anywhere? They said there was no folder when they came across it. With the files gone, now he has to figure out another plan. Dave?
Out of precaution, the paramedics take him to the hospital. Ben is sitting up in his bed thinking about all the events that just happened. The files are gone. Maggie's dead. What else can he do? It's at that moment Ben digs down somewhere deep, deep to where it was like the first time when he started this business. That entrepreneurial spirit, that spirit that got him out of poverty. Ben decides at that moment he's going to create a new media company to rival the original. Ben eventually is discharged from the hospital and works like hell to get his new company up and running. Meanwhile, his great grandson is trying to keep tabs on what Ben's doing and is putting certain roadblocks in his way in order to stop him. But Ben is able to begin his media company. Unlike before, Ben is learning more and more about the internet and how to leverage marketing yourself on the internet. His media company focuses more on YouTube and TikTok-like videos in order to bring more brand awareness and get users to want to use his app. As his company grows and people take up an interest and stock goes up higher and higher, this makes his great-grandson jealous, really, that he was able to do this from nothing again. But sitting what he believes to be comfortable, his great-grandson decides it's nothing for him to fully worry about, as it's still too small to mean anything to him. However, this was an oversight by his great-grandson, which is the reason why he's not fit to run that company. Ben's company becomes large enough to surpass the original. It's at this point that the great-grandson becomes too unable to accept his current position. He took over the King Media Group in order to have such a big company and bring it to a higher level of success. But here's his great-grandfather coming out of left field and rising above the original company. In order to beat back on his great-grandfather, he decides to do another shady business deal in the tropics and the Caribbean islands to offset his losses and to save some of his money. Ben all along has been expecting him to do something like this, as he's already done before. He had the documents to prove it, but with it lost, he couldn't prove the past, but he can now prove the future. At this point, and Ben has contacts in the government. As his company had grown, he's been able to become bigger and bigger for himself again. And he uses that to get his great-grandson tried, and after a lengthy trial, convicted. The sweet irony of it all. But like I said from the very beginning, there can only be one Benjamin King. Now, his great-grandson is going to jail for pretty much the remainder of his life. Ben still has his new company, and the board members from the original company want him to come back at the helm. Ben decides to merge the two companies and becomes Benjamin King, CEO, president again. The end.
Nice.
Crazy story.
Nice.
It's interesting because I didn't think it starts off with him at this level. He has this lull, but and at this company. And then when he returns, he finds out more technically about humanity and greed and the family. But then he comes back at the top again of the company he originally had.
I think with a lot more detail, we can add a lot of cool stuff to this one.
There's a lot of themes that come out of this. I mean, it's really the pits of the worst aspects of humanity. And then you have it be, it's almost Shakespearean in a certain sense, and you have it be your own family who are willing to try to kill you and do you wrong. So it has this potential of opening up the themes of like greed, family, distrust, and what that looks like when you combine them all. And then also diving deeper into morality and more so what it must be like from someone to come back into this world after it's changed so much. There's a question of, is it even worth it? Your wife, your son, you don't even know your great grandson, right? So if all these people and your friends and all these people that were directly involved in your family have now passed on, you're technically like, you come back, you're by yourself. Like all the friends that helped you get where you got are dead. Your wife, your son, everyone's dead. Yeah, you still have family, but it's a bit removed. You don't have lived in experiences with them. And
yeah, they're just family by blood.
Yeah, but you don't have any lived experience with them. And so an interesting thing of, is it really worth it? It's greed on his great grandson, but there's also a level of greed that would have to be pulled out and put on display if you were to boil it down even for Benjamin. The level of greed to think, I want to, in essence, help in playing God, so that way I can come back and continue to live this awesome life. And in this case, in this version, he gets to the top and lives an awesome life. But it's now that we're talking about it and we know what the end looks like, I think it would be interesting if he didn't come back fully and it wasn't what he thought. Like he wanted to come back so he can live life to the fullest, and maybe he's not going to live life to the fullest. Maybe it was a fool's errand to try in the first place. So that might have been in the second draft of alternate ending.
Yeah, there could be some details where they tried to experiment on his wife and every other of his family members too, and it didn't work. He's the only one that made it out.
Yeah, and caused some more problems that they had to live with in agony and in pain for many years or something like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that was an interesting story for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot in there that we just couldn't all pull out for an hour and a half, but
we were working down to the wire.
Oh, we did. As you guys saw, sometimes, and it's important to say this for the writers watching, if you are a writer, sometimes just having a bad outline is the best outline.
As long as you have something that starts and ends.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. And then the funny thing is, it's not actually a bad outline. It's a good outline because it gives you a chance to throw those ideas up, see if it sticks, and then come up with better endings or tease out themes that you weren't really thinking about. And now it's, that's so obvious. I didn't catch it the first time, but now you've emptied out your brain and you can look at it again with fresh eyes again, but knowing what you know now and get to a different place with it that can only make it better. What a great exercise. And I think this is a great story. I think AI is going to have one hell of a time.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say too is it gives you the ability to give you at least direction to add more details. Because the line when he gets hit, when they get in the car crash, when someone crashes into them, the line I had written down before I came up with that detail for that scene was, an assassination attempt is conducted for Ben and the board member.
Yeah.
So it could be as broad as that.
Yep.
You can have it written down. And then on a second look, you can look at it and be like, how can I make this more exciting?
Yep. Yep.
Like, how can I add some color to this?
Yep.
Because that is a pivotal scene in the whole entire story. But you just need to have it down so you know exactly that's going to happen. Now you just add some details, add some color to it. What's the assassination attempt look like? What happens? Stuff like that. I think
what we'll say is, when in doubt, general is the route. Just
there you go.
Put down the general assassination attempt on Ben and the board member dies. That's good enough to have your story continue in your outline to get to a conclusion that's logical. And then you can go back, as Kevin just said, you can go back and make it colorful and add in those details to make it pop off the page and come to life to the reader or the viewer. But you need that first. And even if it's just that simple line, you need that first in order to know what was going to happen. We were able to do this in an hour and a half and come up with these kind of thoughts and ideas. It just goes to show, give yourself a time limit and you say you have to finish. You have to put the end at the end of whatever you put down. And it better make sense. Even if it's vague, it better make sense. And it just goes to show what you can actually do in that time limit.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now let's see what our AI competitor is going to figure out. I don't know exactly how to put this theme to them. I'm going to try my best.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
You create a story.
It's definitely,
with the words journal, television, conglomerate,
Thaw,
and offset, as themes or words in the story. Make it about a businessman who freezes himself in a cryo chamber and comes back to life years later and tries to take back his company.
Just make it about a businessman who freezes himself. Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because he put him, freezes himself in a cryo chamber and comes back to life years later and tries to take back his company. Yeah. All right.
I think that'll work. Let's see. Maybe it'll be like, what is the... Oh, start writing right away. Yeah. Usually it takes like a second.
It's like, you know what? I don't have to think too hard about this one.
This already exists.
Someone else had this idea, which is probably very possible.
Oh, wow. I already see some similarities. Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
What's it? Frozen
Business Mogul.
Oh,
I love these titles.
It
just makes it so literal.
Business Mogul.
It just makes the most literal titles ever. This is Frozen Business Mogul by the AI engine. Once a powerful business mogul, Alexander had built a vast conglomerate of companies. But with power came enemies, and one day a bitter rival orchestrated a hostile takeover, leaving Alexander with nothing. In a last-ditch effort to preserve his legacy, Alexander had himself cryogenically frozen in a state-of-the-art cryo chamber, hoping that one day he would awaken and take back his company. Years passed, and the world outside the chamber changed. The thaw of the cryo chamber was automatic, and Alexander woke up to a world vastly different from the one he had known. He picked up a journal left in the chamber and started to read, trying to make sense of the changes. He quickly learned that the conglomerate he had built had been dismantled and rebranded under a new name. He watched on television as the new company celebrated success, feeling a pang of sadness and anger at what he had lost. But Alexander was not to be deterred. He knew he had to offset the odds and take back what was rightfully his. He began to hatch a plan, using his knowledge of the business world to his advantage. Alexander started small, using his knowledge to build up a new company, piece by piece, until he amassed a significant amount of power and influence. He made connections and gained allies, slowly but surely building up the resources he would need to take back what was his. It wasn't easy, and Alexander faced many challenges along the way, but he persevered, driven by a desire to restore his legacy and take back the company that had been taken from him. In the end, Alexander succeeded. He rebranded the company, putting his own stamp on it, and watched as it grew and thrived once again. And through it all, he kept a journal, documenting his journey and the lessons he's learned along the way. He had come back from the dead to make his mark on the world once again, and he was determined to make it count.
All right, I'll say this. That's pretty good. That's pretty on par. I think it might be at the similar level. I understand everyone's going to say, oh, he's biased, blah, blah. I get it. I will say the extra twist that we had about it being his family members and that kind of sting and betrayal and all that other stuff, adding in basically more themes to play with definitely makes our story a bit more unique, more human, more interesting.
Yeah, I think the details really won from our story.
Yeah.
Because I don't expect the AI to write a whole thing of how the guy is going to take over his old company, but it's said in a very general sense.
So you gotta give its dues. This might be the best one.
This was pretty good, though. I will give the AI its flowers. That one was pretty good. Yeah. It was pretty similar to all the ideas that we were throwing around.
Yeah, if we're here, I think it came.
It was pretty close.
It came right here. It came right under. The only thing that put us over the top was the extra details that make the story more human.
Yeah, because
giving us a run for our money.
Yeah, because Alexander in their story, it just felt like he froze himself for no reason.
Yeah, that was one thing. Like he did. It said that something about his foes were getting powerful, something like this, and basically he wanted to freeze himself just to combat that. But that's a crazy idea. That's just crazy. But okay, yeah, get around that.
Yeah, all right. Let's put a title on our story to end it off. Hostile takeover.
I put one up as Chambers.
Chambers.
And it might be an idea that can be pushed further than what we even put down besides just the cryo chamber, but like the various types of chambers that exist that could be a theme in the overall story. So I was like, chambers, all these different places that we go to.
Chambers of secrets.
Yeah, I put down kings because it's multiple kings.
That too.
I put down kings because it's multiple kings trying to be king. And so that was interesting. Frozen
Empires.
I put frozen empires. I did put empire.
Frozen empires.
That's also interesting. It could be a play on that, but that's what I got. Chambers, kings, frozen empires.
Chambers, kings, frozen empires.
If I were to pick one,
Media mogul.
if I were to pick, what you got?
No, I was going to say frozen media mogul to make fun of.
If I were to pick one, I'd probably lean towards kings.
Kings is pretty good.
Because there's so many ways you can play that. Not only is this the last name, but then just king.
He's at the top.
Who's at the top, and then they're fighting for the top. So it's kings, multiple kings trying to fight for the top. The last name is kings.
That sounds good to me. This is Kings. You heard it here, folks. Episode number 12 in the books.
Yes, yes.
Appreciate you for tuning in. And we'll see you next week for a new story. And hopefully you pump out some of your own stories in between. Because, this is, like I said before, Dave and I couldn't even come up with one story last year. We already have 12.
Yep.
So, anyways, happy writing, and we'll see you next week.